So welcome to our Saudi panel. And before we get into the session, what I wanted to really say about Saudi Arabia is actually a land of opportunity as far as we see it. So when companies, quite often, they see themselves as expanding or going into new markets, the first thing that people think about is the US, North America. You know, we're going into these big regions where there are opportunities there. That's where we're going to grow our businesses. But there is a missed opportunity. There are certain gems that are hidden in the world that people don't actually know about until they experience it. So we wanted to dedicate this panel really to Saudi Arabia, not only from the Saudi perspective, but also from the industry perspective in terms of what it's like. So we've obviously introduced our panel to you. I'm going to kick off introducing, so we've got Tahani here, who is from the Ministry of Investment, based here in London. We have Majid Al-Sadi, who's also from the Ministry of Investment. He heads up in Riyadh. And we have Richard, who is an executive at S&C level in Atkins Global. He's been in the Middle East for the last 25 years and now firmly going to be based in Saudi Arabia. So just to start with, I'm going to start with you, Tahani. Right, so the perception of Saudi Arabia is changing quite rapidly, and there are lots of changes, but not everyone understands the market. Not everyone understands the opportunity that exists in Saudi Arabia. So what does your organization do? You're here based in London, you haven't been here too long, but you've been tasked with a mission. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you, Asma, for the introduction, and thank you for all of you for your time and having us here to talk about Saudi Arabia. Yes, Saudi Arabia is changing now. We have a lot of opportunity in different sectors. There is a lot of sectors that are developed, and we are welcoming foreign direct investment to Saudi Arabia. These sectors are new to my country, which is tourism, entertainment, waste management, renewable energy, and much more. Mm-hmm. Our duty here in London to help the foreign investors, to come to Saudi Arabia in an easy way. I found out in my experience here, in a short experience here, that a lot of investors wasting their time. They don't know how to come to Saudi Arabia. We are helping them, educating them on the short and inexpensive way to come to Saudi. Also, we are helping the Saudi company to invest abroad. We have a lot of Saudi company in UK. If I will say Aramco, SABIC, Aquapower, one of them. And much more. Maybe I don't know the rest of the name, and I can't mention all of the rest of the name.
Okay, that sounds great. And so I guess the mission here is, right, to really kind of show Saudi Arabia to the world in a different light, to encourage investment into the country, to encourage people to come and to establish their offices in the local region, to bring their families, and there is a different perspective. And I can probably say from experience, there will be lots of businesses in this room that probably haven't considered Saudi Arabia, either because of the complexities that exist, the red tape that they see. So I'm going to come to you, Richard. I mean, you've been in the region for 25 years, right? Mm-hmm. So it would be good to get your idea. I mean, you work for a huge organization, large workforces across the board. Riyadh is where you're based. And can you just tell us a little bit about your experiences in the country from what it was when you were there and how it looks now?
Yeah, Asma, thank you. And that's a really good question. I mean, as you've already alluded, I've been in the kingdom in a variety of different roles. And in fact, I'd go back. I was there as a child. My parents lived there for 17 years. So I suppose that the one's quite influenced by what you see. And it always seemed to me quite magical. And I think there's so much opportunity. And I think that's what's attracted me, and that's why I've spent a lot of my working life in Saudi Arabia. Firstly with the UK military, and then more latterly with Atkins and S&C Lavalam. And I think it's such a large country, and there is so much opportunity. I mean, I work in an engineering consultancy, and you look at some of the giga projects that are taking place in Saudi Arabia, and we were just talking about it before we came on. You know, this country, the Industrial Revolution, 200 years, 300 years. What Saudi Arabia is trying to achieve is in the next 20 to 30 years, and that is really ambitious. And I think that organizations like ours, and many organizations, there is so much opportunity that when you get involved with things like NEOM, and NEOM is the size of Belgium, So, we talk about NEOM as this little project. No, it's absolutely massive. And I think if you're in the I can only speak from the engineering space. If you're in that, you're an engineer coming out of university, you're going to get the opportunity to work on these things. Whilst if you stayed in the United Kingdom or even North America and the like, the projects, yes, they're complicated. Yes, they're challenging, but they're a lot smaller. So I think that's interesting. My one regret is I never learned to speak Arabic. I tried half a dozen times. I find it incredibly difficult. But I don't think that's precluded me building relationships with people from Saudi Arabia and across the GCC as well. And they are very well, I'm not just saying that because I sit here, but incredibly welcoming and very, very warm as well. So it's a great place to be.
And I like what you say about the opportunity that, there are obviously more than what NEOM is beyond what's being built in Saudi Arabia. And so there are a number of new industries that are emerging and there's a lot of opportunity that exists. But can I come to you, Majid, please? Because obviously you head up the Ministry of Investment in Saudi Arabia. You work with very high-profile investors coming into the country, very, very high-profile value projects that go in. What level of education would you say is being given for people to know these opportunities exist?
Thank you very much, Asma, for the introduction. And before just answering your question, giving in a situation where Saudi Arabia are trying to empower female, and this is what the discussion they speak about. Just for the last 2 or 3 years, I think, we have 2 female ambassadors, one in the US and the other one in Switzerland. We have also the education attaché also in the UK. My wife, she's a deputy minister in Ministry of Culture. And last but not least, also Tahani is leading the UK office within the Ministry of Investment. So these are one topic, I would say, that the government have been acknowledged that this is something that we need to empower. And if you find out that we look into all of the, I would say, negative or even the things that has been dropped away before the Vision 2030, and we are trying as much as we can to come up and speed all of the challenges and all of the, let's say, the awareness to make sure that we are giving the right message about Saudi Arabia. We, as a diversity, we are not only talking about when it comes to non-oil revenue, as a government, we are not talking about tourism or entertainment. We're talking about renewable energy. As you just, Richard mentioned about, we have more than 2 or 4, it's not a project, it's a real city when it comes to the Red Sea project, Giddiya project, NEOM, and also North, called the North Project, Promise Project. We are talking about more than 800 billion Saudi Riyal as an investment, and we are depending fully on the private sector. We're doing it through a marketing campaign. We're doing it through, as we are speaking now, throughout the discussion, workshop, awareness. We have 14 offices of Ministry of Investment across the globe, and now we are signing some kind of deals and agreement with the embassies across also the globe to make sure that we believe in seeing, and we are also asking people to come to Saudi Arabia throughout even, I remember last time, Richard, we invited him to attend Formula 1 in Jeddah with the full experience, and we are doing that in continuous to make sure that people will see our project and will witness that not only the project, not only the investment, not only the infrastructure, is also the people, and how we are. We admit that there are many problems, but what we commit that all of these kind of issues are going to be resolved because it's a bottleneck, and because the government is behind the investor, we're going to do that, and we're going to solve, and we're going to all achieve the one goal. This is what we are doing recently throughout the Ministry of Investment.
Fantastic. And that's great. Thank you, Majid. And I'm just listening to you talk there. There are a couple of things that have come to my mind, especially from the previous talk, and you talked about diversity as well. And maybe this is controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. But I feel like in the West, and I'm going to ask this to you, Richard, because I would like to see your opinion on it. in the West, are we in that comfort zone where we all as a society believe that we are culturally aware, we are diverse, we're doing everything that we can, but we heard the panel previously say, well, actually nothing's changed. But yet in emerging markets like Saudi Arabia, the efforts are real and they're visible and you can actually see that the change is happening. But yet in the West, we talk about it, but behind the scenes, nothing is happening. And so for me, what I've seen is that Saudi Arabia is visibly a different place. So there is no conversation. The conversation's happened. It's been going on for a few years. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I mean, this is quite a sensitive subject as well to discuss. And there are many colleagues, or many friends I have who say, you know, my father-in-law says, you want to work in the Middle East, you want to work in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, I do want to work in Saudi Arabia. There are differences. And Saudi Arabia is changing, in my opinion, and it's changing at a breakneck speed. Now, with change, there are those that want change really fast, and there are those that resist change. And you have to strike a very a delicate balance between the two. But I do believe it is changing. I mean, you only have to pick a newspaper up and you can pick a negative story up. But by the same token, you can pick up a very positive story as well. And one of those is, so for example, as an organization, many organizations are on graduate programs. We do not recruit graduates from any other country apart from Saudi Arabia. We have made a conscious business decision that we will only recruit Saudi nationals into our business because we believe Saudi Arabia is important. A large percentage of our revenue there, but you can approach ED&I subjects, I think, in different ways for different countries, and it's about being agile and it's about being flexible. And we have to remember at the end of the day, we're guests. It's not our country. I've got a strong opinion perhaps of here, because this is my country. So I think we've got to remember that we're guests. And we are there because Saudi Arabia wants to buy our expertise. And in my field, it's in engineering. For these projects to be realized, it needs a lot of experience, and I think that's what we bring. So
no, that's great.
Does that answer the question?
It kind of answers the question, but actually it raises another question for me. So you say that you need Saudi Arabia, so therefore you're based there. But actually I'm going to beg to differ, because Saudi Arabia has a premium visa, right? Yes. It's asking for investors to come in. You're allowing residency. You're allowing people to buy. It's changing that perception. So it's no longer the Saudi Arabia that we knew many years ago, correct, that there is now inclusivity, that if a foreign national wants to go, establish a business. Majid, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Talking about the premium residency, I think 3 years ago it was very limited because it's still a pilot, in a pilot phase. As of today, I think the Bean Royal Court agreed on more than 12 kind of category for the premium residency, where you can simply apply for the premium residency, whether you're an investor, whether you are innovative, or even you have kind of relative in Saudi Arabia. So there are many kind of regional headquarters as well, CEOs of the regional headquarters, and this is, I think, Tahani can elaborate on that. This is a new product where we are asking people to come to Saudi Arabia. This is your country. We don't have that kind of limitation that you're Saudi or non-Saudi. At the end of the day, you are a part of this success, and if you are there, you deserve to stay, and you're always welcome. And you know, like, we are being, as I quote His Royal Highness statement, 30 years we are being behind, and we want to compensate all of this kind of gap within 5 to 10 years. So imagine the gap. Imagine how we are working day and night in different categories when it comes to recycling, when it comes to renewable energy, the solar system, the new cities, or let's say the Neom or Giddiya, the ICT, the technology, the IA, the whole kind of streams, tourism, entertainment, all of these streams, we have teams of teams like just trying to achieve to the level where we are saying that we're not just fair competition, we're not even equivalent to countries, we are on top of that because, and we are, again, I'm emphasizing on, we are depending on the private sector, whether they're local or foreigner or investors. This is where we want them to come and see. And we admit that there are many things to be developed, but we need to listen, we need to experience the actual things that happening on the ground, and we promise that we're gonna fix, whether it's quick fix, bottleneck, whether it's a regulation, whether things are developing to the positive. And if you just read on the numbers and the competitiveness on the World Bank, we were in the like 40 or 50 ranking as a country where ease of doing business. Now we are almost on the 20th. We are the fastest country on the world when it comes to the technology and the internet and the 5G. We are the fastest growth country, the first on GCC and the worldwide when it comes to women empowerment. So these are numbers. We are not talking about theories. It's really things that you just need to go back to we are the safest country almost on the world when it comes to safety and security. These are all numbers that and investors would like to look at it before he decide to invest in Saudi Arabia. In addition, that as of today, we are not talking about an IPA as an investment promotion agency. You're talking about Ministry of Investment. The ministry usually in the worldwide, the definitions, they are a regulator and incentivize and enabler to the investors. So when you have a ministry that basically looking into the private sector, it means that the government and the royal family and the king by himself, he's looking into that kind of private sector. And this gives you that the intention is really for the private sector and welcoming them to come to Saudi Arabia. So this is maybe, I hope that will answer.
No, fantastic, thank you. Now that has answered the question. So I'm going to come to you, Tahani, because the regional headquarter program that obviously you are kind of advocating at the moment, that's quite significant, right? So a big announcement made last year that any company that wishes to do business or have government projects must have their headquarters in Saudi Arabia. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, the regional headquarters, one of the new initiatives in Saudi Arabia. It's designed for the multinational group which duly established under the law of Saudi Arabia. And their job is to support and give the strategic advisory to their partner in the MENA region. The regional headquarters must have their physical office in Saudi Arabia, and also they have several advantage and incentive, like 10-year Saudization exemption, spouse work permit, dependent age extension to 25 years. Their kids, they can study in the university in Saudi Arabia. There is also waiver of specific accreditation for the engineer and for the doctor and some of the jobs. We have Majid here. He was leading the MISA team, which taking care of all the admin stuff for the companies and for the employee. If the employee want to have register their kids in the school, if they want to have a maid or driver, if they want to buy a car or rent a car, all Majid teams, they can provide it for them. And the last not least, the government tendering, which all the company who has their large regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia, not only in Riyadh, because I have a lot of questions about Riyadh. No, not only in Riyadh, in all Saudi Arabia, they can apply for the government tendering, and I hope they can win this project. Also, during the FII 2011, we licensed 44 companies, and we give them extra incentive, which is the premium residency. And the Royal Court and the Ministry of Investment cover all the costs for their COs.
Okay, great. And so I guess, the challenge is that Saudi Arabia is changing, inviting companies to come and set up. And then again, with any kind of entity set up, expat families, changing your lifestyle, being able to get facilities, again, people would probably in this room think that, if I'm going and setting up my company in the US, or I'm going somewhere else in South America, or I'm going to APAC, they kind of understand the market. I think there's less known processes available publicly, again, with people probably less experiences with Saudi Arabia. So one thing that I would say is it would be really good to kind of understand the steps that you provide, the ministry provides, because it's phenomenal. I don't think people know how much help and support you give to people and to make them feel welcome and comfortable, because I feel like the stigma, this stereotypical thing that we've been talking about today, in so many things, we need to kind of drop that and need to take opportunity by the hand and start to see things very differently. So I think it would be really good for the audience to hear about how much effort you're actually making. And so if someone comes to you and says, we want to set up in Saudi Arabia, what are the government opportunities? For example, you've got a list, healthcare, tech, for good, whatever it is, those lists are there. They can win government projects, right? So these are multi-million-dollar contracts people can win that people don't even know about. So I'd just like you to comment on that.
So in addition to your platform,
We just provide. We're embedding with you, right?
yeah, exactly. It's a partnership, definitely. It's something that really I'm looking forward to really have this kind of an alignment between your platform and this is one of the tools that we would look into it. Second, yes, I think there are a lot of messages that we want to post to the audience, but just let me give you one or two recent of development that we have approached or have we reached recently. You know that any foreign investor that now he can apply for his license, receiving his foreign investment license, the commercial registration, and also his full tax certificate while he's still in his country without coming to Saudi Arabia. And it will take maximum 1 week to get the full license. And if he's in Saudi, he can apply for his foreign license, or even if he's outside Saudi, within 2 hours. This is exactly our commitment to our investor, that you are immediately can apply and you can take your license even if you are not in Saudi Arabia. For the entrepreneur, even if they don't have experience in their country, if they apply for the entrepreneur license in Saudi Arabia, they can get it immediately and they be exempted from the fees for 5 years. The website, which is the Invest Saudi platform, this will show all of the investment opportunities that led by the government. And once you show interest as an investor, there are teams from the attraction team. They will contact you and they make sure they're going to connect you with the relevant government entity to make sure that we mind the gap. Now, even if an investor, as a potential investor, would like to come to Saudi Arabia, we have, this is one of the things that we offer. We give them a package for 2 to 3 days where we welcome him to Saudi Arabia. We do a culture, entertainment, opportunity, business, meeting with the government entity, meeting with the local investor to make sure that they can have the 360, let's say, picture of Saudi Arabia. And if things are happening, we also conduct a consultancy team to work with them, with the investor, to make sure what kind of license, what kind of joint venture agreement they can set with the investor. So when we talk about an end-to-end, and this is what Tahani mentioned for the RHQ, it's not just for the RHQ, it's for everyone. We want you to come. We want you to see the actual opportunity that happened in Saudi Arabia. So these are the very few, let's say, incentives or at least services, because now if you want to attract investors, you have to really have you need to or be full of services. Our call center, by the way, it's with the 16 language. So it's not just English and Arabic. It's cover most of the common language, so you can really have that kind of assistant. We have people that can guide you online how to apply for your license. So this is basically when it comes to license, when it comes to opportunity, as I told you, as an incubator, or let's say as a superior for the investment, we have the whole ecosystem of the investment opportunity. Yet, if you still think about another opportunity that it's not on the website, we are happy as a Ministry of Investment to develop this kind of opportunity. We reach out you to the right, whether it's a private sector or even a government sector, and we bring your idea to the table, and we make sure to qualify it, and we bring you the whole ecosystem when it comes to incentives, regulation, to make sure that we are with you as an investor, and we make sure to, let's say, mature that opportunity to be started from zero to hero. So these are some of the examples where we are applying with the Ministry of Investment.
Amazing. I'm going to go out and see if anyone's got any questions for the audience. We've only got 5 minutes, so I thought I'd quickly come out, and if everyone has any questions for the Ministry of Investment or for Richard on Saudi Arabia. Here. Oh.
How do you see Saudi priorities evolving in terms of their industrial policy and the technologies and sectors that they most want to support? We've seen some change over the last 5 years. How do you think it's going to change in the next 5 years?
I think as a Vision 2030, we have a plan, whether it comes to sectorial, and we have set these kind of sectors as a 9 sector. I would say renewable energy, power, and automotive, education, and technology, tourism, and also petrochemical, waste. Those are
waste management.
Waste management. These are the 9 sectors that we are focusing on that 10 years. Because of the market, global market, if after 10 years, which is after 2030, the government will find out that as a global trend, there is another kind of, let's say, trend or even a potential kind of sector, we are happy to adopt, because, the beginning of the Vision 2030, there were those kind of entities or sector, it wasn't even there. And within 10 years, we focus and we've been really leader of many of these sectors. So it's a trend, it's a global. I'm not sure that I cannot predict what's gonna come on the next after 2030. As they said, there's another 2040, but it's a global trend.
I think we had one question here.
Got a question for Richard. So you spent 25 years in the Middle East. How much do you think Saudi Arabia has changed in that time from when you first went there?
I think it's changed enormously, to be honest. And I think the biggest change, I think, is attitude change. I think Saudi Arabia, it's fair to say, was quite a closed society when I first went 25, 30 years ago. I think I think things are opening up enormously. I think the standard of driving is still suspect, and I think Majid would accept and probably agree with me on that. But I think that it is liberalising, and okay, we're sat here in the UK, there are changes, without being too contentious, ladies started to drive 5 years ago. Now, you can argue whether that's right or wrong, that it was only 5 years ago, but the point is it's an indicator of change. That's the point I'm making, an indicator of change. So I think that's the case. You fly into Riyadh, for example, now, and the immigration officer, the first guy that meets you, is welcoming. I went in 25 years ago, 30 years ago. It wasn't like that at all. They were in military uniforms and military fatigue. The guys now are in thobe. The ladies are, and you are welcomed from as soon as you arrive. And I think that's really important to people as well. So I think there is an openness. I think society is opening up. I think things are discussed that probably were not discussed before and I think that all helps Western organizations investing in Saudi Arabia, because the mystique goes, so it's more transparent and it's clearer, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one thing to take away from this, from my perspective, is, again, I put my legal hat on every single time I'm doing something. I can't help the lawyer in myself. But if I look at it, I have worked with probably more than 160 countries, right, worldwide. And over the years of my career, I have helped companies expand into pretty much every country. And in the West, in the UK, I have had delegates that were supposed to come as speakers, right? It's taken 6 weeks to get a business visa to come to the UK. That's the UK system. You apply for a work permit to the US, you're waiting 3 months, sometimes 6 months for a work permit. If you can get a business license in a week, we're all coming to Saudi Arabia. Thank you so
I
much. Yes,
I wanna add something. Till today, we have 447 licensed companies from the UK, and we have 4,070 companies licensed also from worldwide. So we are welcoming investment, welcoming foreign investors, and all of you are welcome. And we are happy, me and my colleague Abdelaziz Ghfali, my colleague Majid, we are happy to help you in all the aspects.
So
Thank
can
you.
we have our next conference in Riyadh, right?
Please welcome.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.